Hi, we're here today to speak with Jared Kellner, the author of The Chamberlain Negotiation Principles, a tale of 5 must-know negotiation tenets and the insight behind the principles to help you succeed. Did I get that all right?
You got it. It's a mouthful.
It's a full title, but it's a wonderful book. I just completed it this week, and it was a very interesting read. Can you tell us a little bit about the basics of the story and
Sure.
of the nonfiction part of the story as well?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. So this is a negotiation principle book told through a very poignant story of a young man who's starting his sales career and a relationship that he develops with an elderly gentleman from the streets that becomes his mentor. I've read many negotiation books throughout my sales career. Most of those books are nonfiction, academic books, and the material, although is fantastic in there, it's often dry, and it takes a lot to really get into the book. I took a whole different approach in writing this book, and be happy to talk with you more about it as we go through this.
Well, definitely tell us more about the fable portion of the book. That was kind of the draw I felt into the story about Chamberlain, the elderly gentleman, and how he interacts with Richard, who's the main character of the book. Maybe you could tell us why you chose a fable format versus the nonfiction format.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, stories really are the vehicle that we really learn through. I find that all the courses that I've ever taken or all the lessons that I've ever learned have been really told through stories. I also thought that the audience for the book could be expanded if I told the negotiation principles through a fable. So we're starting to reach people who read fiction that wouldn't normally pick up a nonfiction book about negotiation principles. And the principles in the book really apply not just to the corporate sales world, but in life in general. And really it's through that poignant fable that the message is really driven.
Now, how did you pick the 5? I mean, there are many principles, negotiation principles. Like you said, you could study a lifetime.
Forever, right.
So how did you select these particular 5?
Yeah, so the 5 principles that I share in the book are really what I felt were the foundation of good, solid negotiation skills that anybody that's starting a sales career needs to fundamentally understand and frankly, master. There are advanced principles that will hopefully come in the sequel, but hopefully we'll have some success with this book. But really, the 5 principles that I share here, if somebody who's starting their sales career can really get a good grasp and a good handle on these 5 principles, they'll be successful because it's the foundation, it's the building blocks of how you negotiate.
And is there one particular of the 5 principles that is your favorite, and have you applied it in your life?
Well, I've certainly applied all of them throughout my sales career. I like them all, but there actually is one that I'm mostly drawn towards, and that's the principle that talks about that you have to be aware when you are not dealing with the decision maker, when you don't know who you're really negotiating with, when you make mistakes in a negotiation and you give away too much, and it turns out that you're not even talking to the decision maker, and then somebody else sits down at the table and you end up having to give away a little bit more. So I call it really knowing who's cast in the play. Really knowing who you're talking to, what their role is, what their responsibility is, what their authority level is. That's critical to negotiating, because if you don't, you really can stumble along the way.
And it's a common mistake. It happens to a lot of people in the negotiation process.
Yeah, you talk about negotiating the purchase of a new car. And we've all been in this situation where you're sitting down across the table in the auto dealership with the sales rep, and then he says, let me go check with my boss, let me go check with the finance guy, and he gets up, and then the boss comes in and sits down, and we don't even really know who that boss is or what his role or responsibility is. But if you divulge too much to the first person that you're negotiating with and kind of reveal what you're willing to pay, and then somebody else comes in, you don't really put yourself in the best position to succeed. So really understanding who you're negotiating with is critical.
And what I noticed also about this book is that it can apply to everyday life. The target audience, my understanding, is not just salespeople. How could this be helpful in like you're talking about car sales? Are there other areas that this might be helpful?
Yes, certainly. We negotiate all the time with your spouse on where to go to dinner, who to invite over for the party. We negotiate with our kids. You're going to do your homework first. You're going to do your watch TV first. So you can take the basics and the principles that are shared in the book and really apply them to daily life. And I think that the principles, because they're shared through a story, will then open up this, this book to a broader audience. People that wouldn't, like I was mentioned before, that wouldn't normally read a negotiation book, they'll be drawn into the fable. I like the story. I hope you did too.
I did. I particularly liked the ending, but I don't want to ruin the ending for you. But it was a heartwarming ending. Now let's just review the title of the book. Can you review that for us?
Yeah, the Chamberlain Negotiation Principles. Chamberlain is the old guy in the story. Sweet old man. He's really a tragic hero, and so he's teaching young Richard the principles that he's taking to advance his career. And then the subtitle there, A Tale of 5 Must-Know Negotiation Tenets. Obviously we're talking about a fiction, it's a story, but what I do there in the second part, the insight behind the principles to help you succeed, I really wanted to make sure that when you were done reading the book, you left with a real solid understanding of the principles, and I knew that I left some details out in the story because it would make the fable and the story a little bit too cumbersome. So what I did was, after each principle is taught in the story, tap on the brakes and I do a real in-depth nonfiction chapter about that principle where I go deep and do a business analysis of the principle.
A bit of a review.
Yeah, it's a review, and it's also an expansion of the principle, adding little tidbits, details that are not in the story. That way, the salespeople that really want to apply this to a corporate kind of an experience are getting the best of both worlds. They get a nice read, and then they also get the principles that they're usually used to when they read a nonfiction book. Anyway, best of both worlds.
Oh, it is a great book. We have to close, but I just wanted to review, where can people get this book?
Sure. Great, yeah, thank you. So on Amazon.com, you could type, obviously, the title of the book, The Chamberlain Negotiation Principles, or you could type my name in, Jared Kellner, BarnesandNobles.com, and you could also visit my personal website, which is jaredkellner.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.